Do you have a different approach on the how to create some crate comfort with puppies versus adults, or do you have the same approach for both?
That's a great question. And I'm going to say yes, sort of, because it is a little bit of an it depends. I've worked with a lot of both puppies and adult dogs, juveniles, etc. And what I've found is that some take to the crate very quickly, and I'll explain how I typically do it,
Yeah.
and some don't. And so for those that don't, that need a little bit of adjustment, massaging of the protocol, I want to make that point up front before I talk about the training process because we have to individualize any and all training to the dog in front of us.
Yes.
And so while I think it's super important that we look at standard operating procedures and how the majority of dogs would be acclimated to a crate or whatever behavior we're trying to teach, okay, but you might have to adjust that for your particular dog based on their body language, behavior, breed specification, etc.
Yes.
So for me, it will go about this one of two ways. And for puppies, it I'm a little looser, if you will, about asking the puppies to go in because puppies are like, I will follow the treat and walk in.
Okay.
They have typically very little concern. Or they're following their noses in the smells of treats and things of that
Yes.
nature. For dogs that are juveniles or adults, they can sometimes have a little bit of already reserved skepticism, like treat is in the back of a crate. You're
Mhm.
standing on the outside. And so for those scenarios, I oftentimes use whether it's a clicker or a reward marker. I start with put your nose toward or into the space of the crate. You click, get a reward. And then we up that criteria to one paw and the nose. And then it becomes the two front paws. And slowly but surely, the dog starts to enjoy the game of,
Yeah.
hey, if I put two paws and my nose forward in the crate, I get a just yummy treat. And over time, we shape them to go in. And it's become such a fun game that they enjoy it. And then we can shape them from there.
When you're doing the shaping with the slower process, when you're capturing that offering of the nose in and the paw in, are there treats in the crate that are encouraging them to try that to get it started?
And so if this is the crate door, there's a treat literally 1 inch on the inside that they can just dip their nose in and grab
Yeah.
without having to enter the crate. Once I get that sort of behavior of poking their nose in, I will happily capture that without a treat in on the inside of the crate. So before you know it, you're putting a verbal cue on it, or at least a hand cue pointing towards the crate or something like that. And obviously, that can get into small details and
Yes.
technical aspects. But I will say this is the funny thing that I always love to tell dog owners. When I used to teach, this sounds like a non sequitur, but it's not. When I used to teach classes, I used to teach trick classes and I used to
Mhm.
teach general manners classes and some reactivity classes and such. And on the first day of class, I used to just revel in the fact that people would come in with their puppies or their adult dogs and they would say, look, my dog can roll over, my dog can high five, my dog can sit and down and do all these things. First the hand signal, then the verbal. Don't click too early, don't click too late, feet for position. There's so many rules and regulations, if you will, to get the most efficient and effective training
Mhm.
methodology. But your average owner is, I don't know. I took some
Let me
cookies
figure this
out
out.
and they started to roll over and I gave him a cookie and now he does it every time I ask him to. So as much as there are some sort of precision elements of training, and if you get stuck, then you want to consult a professional to help you
Mhm.
with those sticky points. But you know what? Dogs are pretty amazing and pretty
Yes.
resilient and they figure out what you're asking for if you're being a bit systematic about it.
Yes, your finesse doesn't have to be professional level where the crate's rewarding
That's right.
and that you're happy about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Make a caveat on that because you were asking about in or one nose in, is the treat in the crate first, etc. One of the reasons I train it that way, particularly for adult dogs, is want to get entering the crates to be a really strong behavior. And then I can build up time in the crates. But if I, and this is partially born of that fire experience,
Yeah.
if there's an evacuation coming, I want to be able to say, load up in your crate, and that dog runs in there.
Mhm.
Not only because I need that expediency during an emergency situation, but also because that means they're comfortable enough to run in and lie down. I
Yes.
don't want to go there.
Yes. Perfect. So we're starting with either the pup is just toddling in and, oh, there's something yummy in there, or we built up to them going in all the way on their own terms by capturing and shaping and rewarding. Then what's the next step that you'd like to go to?
For puppies in particular, I love to feed meals in there. There's a beautiful way that we can tie an interactive feeding toy so that if they want to take it out of the crate, it's tied to the back of the crate. So they're like,
Mhm.
okay, I'll just lie here. I need it. That works for me. Kongs are great for that. And there's other toys that are great for that too. Because once they're comfortable eating and hanging out, and we built up 2 to 5 or 10 minutes because they're settling with that food toy, we've made some tremendous progress without having to do really much of anything except for put that food in the crate.
Yeah.
And that's mostly for puppies. With adult dogs, particularly those that I've been trying to carefully shape into going into the crate, there's one last step, and that's turn around while in the crate and not exit the crate.
Ooh, I
So,
like it.
yeah, for those of you that geek out on some of this training stuff,
Yeah.
for many dogs, it's not super hard because they're gonna, if they go when we get them to shape all the way into the crate and we drop a treat in the back of the crate, many of them will turn around to exit the crate, and so we just reward as they turn around. Drop
Mhm.
a treat there, yay, we've got it. Some will back out, and those are the ones that we're like, okay, we've got to play around with this one, and there's some fun little nuanced things that we can do. And that's not the majority of dogs, so I won't go down that rabbit hole. But once we've got the dog to turn around the
Mhm.
crate, I feel really strongly that we're doing similar things where we're feeding, whether it's a meal or those sorts of things. And ultimately, once we've done that after with the door open or slightly open, we're going to take a few moments of I'm closing the door, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the door is open. And that is
Mhm.
not with latching. That is literally with holding the door closed. You're standing there, no scary stuff is happening. And we build up to where we can latch that crate door, and they're happy and they're comfortable, and it means nothing. So predictability is everything in a dog's world. And we have
Yeah.
to remember that sometimes if that something can predict nothingness, if you will. Like, I'm holding the crate door. That predicts nothing. I'm still standing here. Nothing bad happens. Nothing
Right.
great happens, but nothing bad happens really either. So that is an excellent way to acclimate to that. And then we start to build duration and time in the crate. Puppies tend to be so great with this because they have such physically necessary nap times.
Yes.
And so you could say, oh, he's getting sleepy. I'm going to throw that treat in the crate or tell him to go load up in your crate. He'll load up in there and turn around and do the
Yeah.
eye wobble. And you're like, hey, here's a little stuffed treat or a little toy or whatever. And I'm going to close the crate while you literally physically are like unable to do anything other than nap because you're such a puppy.
When you talk about the predictability, another pattern I see a lot are people using the crate only when they're leaving the house or when they're going to bed in a separate room. And so when
Right.
we're thinking about predictability, like
Yeah.
in my care, doodles get their meals in their crates. So for my food motivated pups, they're zipping right in there because they know, oh my goodness, it's mealtime. And if it's the opposite, that I'm only sending you in your crate because I'm leaving, that can be a setback with crate comfort and training.
I'm so glad that you brought that up. And that is true whether the dog in front of you has some sort of separation related behavior issue or not. Dogs are social creatures.
Yes.
And if we gave them a survey and we asked, would you prefer your people be home or not? I'm going to guess we would get a 90+%
Yes.
success. Yes, on I prefer my people to be home. We're social creatures. And so realistically, when you leave, even if your dog is not suffering with separation anxiety, they're like, it's better when they're here. And so if we're going to say every time we're going to introduce something like not great, which is us leaving, we're going to put you in the crate. Oh,
Yes.
I only go in here when it's a bummer. I'm going to resist it. Why wouldn't
Yes.
I? Like, no, if I run away from you, then you can't leave. It's really important. And that logic goes very far in dog training. Only leash your dog at the park when you're about to leave. Either tell them, inform them that something not fun is going to happen. Okay, gotta go, or whatever. And when I
Mhm.
say tell them, it doesn't necessarily need to be verbal, but using that verbal or visual cue. Or don't always use it as a, okay, always when the leash clips on at the park, we're leaving, or there, at least there's something going on that's positive with that. And the same with the
Yes.
crate. If you're going to go in the crate when the majority of time that we're leaving, you should at least get a veritable Disneyland of goodies in there so that it makes up for us being gone for a bit.
Yes. And if your dog, who usually enjoys whatever that treat is, doesn't eat in their crate, that's a clue.
That's a clue.
Yeah.
It's a big clue. What's interesting, I don't think she would mind me mentioning her name, and which may not mean much to a lot of your listeners, but Sandy Thompson, who I'm assuming you're very familiar with as
Yeah.
an academy person, had a dog that suffered from separation anxiety that I helped her with. And it was really interesting that this was a long time ago. It was at least 10 or 15 years ago. It was really interesting. She went to the vet because she was concerned if there was some other medical issue. And the vet gave her a questionnaire and it said, will your dog eat when left alone? Does your dog destroy things? Does your dog, 6 questions or something like that. And she checked, yes, he does all these things. And then does he eat when left alone? She said, yes. And this was a long time ago. And the vet said, well, obviously he doesn't have separation
Oh,
anxiety because he will eat when left alone. I always bring that up because I want people to know that, yes, it is a big hello. Why is my dog no longer eating when I'm leaving? But also, I want people to not assume just because their dog is chomping down on the peanut butter treats and whatever else that they are perfectly comfortable. And that's where cameras have been such a blessing in the last decade or so.
I sometimes lose my appetite when I'm upset.
Yeah,
And sometimes I can have a pint of Ben and Jerry and still be upset. And so that could be a clue, but it's not defining.
that's right.
Yes.
That's right. I have a
So,
really
yes.
beautiful, sorry, it was a really
No.
beautiful video of a dog that shows perfect what we call conflicted motivation. She is chomping down on her Kong with peanut butter and all the good things in it while whining and intermittently staring at the door. And I just think, see, just because a dog is eating doesn't mean that they're happy with alone time anyway, and with other behaviors too. But I want people to be aware of that.
Yes, perfect. And sometimes I'll see people with a very young pup get one of the little puppy Kongs and put food into it and say, my that I heard that trick and it's not working. Well, puppies aren't puzzle ready.
No, you are absolutely right. And some pups, like they need those, whether it's a Kong toy or something that like literally things spill out without any sort of interaction. And then they get inquisitive.
Yes.
Don't stuff a frozen Kong for a puppet.
Know what to do with it. Yes.
You're not gonna know.
So if your dog is not a wolf, which they're not, and they're not running into the crate because it's their den,
Yeah.
and they're not licking a frozen Kong, your dog's not broken. They're
No.
normal. They're a domesticated dog. So I hear a lot of puppy parents who bring home their new puppy. The breeder said make sure they sleep in the crate at night. That's the fastest way to make sure you're getting rest at night and not to have accidents in the house. And then we're telling pup parents to go easy and gently. It can feel conflicting of, I know I'm supposed to use a contained space so my pup isn't running around and messing all over the house and keeping a rest schedule, but I also know I'm supposed to go slow. How do you help puppy parents navigate that?
Yeah,
It's
I love
tricky.
this question because we really are, as an industry, I'd say, not we, meaning you and I, but as an industry, we oftentimes send some conflicting messages like, go super slow, don't push, allow them to get acclimated, etc. But don't ever not have them out of the crate at night. I'm like, whoa. So I have to go fast and slow all at the same time. How does that
Yes.
work? So I appreciate this question. I think some of it depends on what their, particularly for puppies, what their crate familiarity is when you bring them.
Mhm.
And if we're talking about doodles, hopefully we were looking at breeders that have acclimated them to some extent to some crate time. And so this is not a completely foreign scenario for the pup when they come into the home. And we've touched a little bit on that sort of sleep wake cycle for puppies when they're out. And oftentimes, yeah, at night, if they have had some acclimation to a crate from the breeder at night, we can put that crate as close as possible to the bed, in my personal opinion. That's where it should be. And if they're struggling, then it should be on a table that is level to the bed.
Stand can work with that little pup.
Nightstand so that they can see, smell, and potentially even touch our fingers through the crate if we need to. And that's where the gradual nature comes in, right? Some pups will come home and they're ready to just crush for most of the night in their crate because that's what they learned in their breeding home. But we have to individualize that for the pup in front of us. Now, I think it's important that we all remember that alone time or being alone, or rather alone time comfort, is a learned skill, which is different than sleeping in a crate at night. There's mom, dad, whomever the partners are there with the pup. It's downtime. Everyone's tired and sleeping, and it's dark, and all the things that set pups up for success to sleep well at night in a crate or otherwise in a pen or something. During the day, when we add in confinement with daylight, with I've got some energy to let out,
Yes.
and I have to run to the grocery store, so I'm going to pop you in your crate and get out of the house. We've got a lot of contributing factors that make it very different than going to bed and all of us sleeping at night.
Yeah.
And so that is where I want to remind people that alone time comfort or alone time relaxation is a learned skill. And dogs don't come out of the box, no pun intended, just knowing how to be alone, right? And so I really recommend that we gradually introduce them to alone time. And one of the most common things that you will hear is puppies cry, puppies will cry. And
Mhm.
there's some truth to that, right? They whine because the
You could
toy got
protest. Yeah.
they can protest. Yeah, there's
Mhm.
stuff that they're gonna have some words to say about. But if that crying, let's call it whining, etc., goes beyond a certain point where there's obvious audible signs of concern, distress, panic, we are doing our dogs as a disservice if we're like, he'll get over it, give him another 15 or 20 minutes. We're not only doing them a disservice from helping them acclimate to being alone, we're doing them a disservice emotionally and physiologically too, because that kind of distress impacts them as pups or as an adult dog too.
And how would you describe the difference between a puppy or an adult dog barking at a protest versus distress?
I actually love this question. You're not putting me on the spot because I'm not going to do my best dog whining and try and say, this sounds like that and that sounds like this.
Right.
Quite the opposite, as a matter of fact. What we need to look at is what is the dog's, puppies in particular, what is their overall body language and behavior indicating? One of the ways that I like to do it is I'll take a little 3-minute video, let's say, of a puppy. And obviously, I won't do this if they look distressed. But if I'm like, are they distressed or are they just, I'm tired, like the toddler that doesn't want to go down for a nap? That's a very common thing that we see in puppies. So taking a little snippet of video, watching it with the sound off is so powerful because
Mhm.
if the puppy is, so we as human beings, particularly women, are very in tune to men and women for a different reason, but are very in tune to vocal cues, right?
Yeah.
Audible cues. And a lot of other mammals are not, that's not their primary means of discerning the world, but it is for us. And so we hear barking or crying and it influences what we think we are hearing, especially what we are seeing. So if we watch that 3-minute video without listening to the barking, whining, whatever it may be, and we
Mhm.
see a dog that is just, you see their body language and they're like, look, that's very different than if we see them frantically jumping against the side of the crate and
Yes, mouth
vocalizing.
dripping with drool.
All of those indicators, right? Because we cannot, there's no such thing as saying this type of bark,
Yes.
not from a layman perspective. There's like ways that you can record pitches and things like that in a scientific lab,
Yeah.
but we can't do that just day to day.
Right.
So really we need to rely on body language and behavior. And I think that for the most part, anybody and everybody can look at that body language and say, yeah, he looks relaxed, or oh, he does look pretty upset. And any bit of he does look pretty upset is worthy of taking a little time to let's make it not upset for this animal.
Yeah.
And yes, there's a reality that people have for eons said, let them cry it out and they'll get over it. And
Mm.
guess what? A lot of dogs do.
Yeah.
But is that a reason to risk the fallout that could happen? I don't think it is. And it doesn't take that long to help them be like, so you're a little stressed. All right, let's take this a little bit more gradually. And the dog's like, okay, I can handle 1 minute or whatever it may be. It's really worthwhile. And I always say, give puppies that metaphorical soft place to land because we
Mm.
want them to be resilient adults.
Yes. We're playing the long game here.
We are.
This isn't just quick house training solution. They're going to it helps with house training. We're planning on using this for a long time. And so we want them to be comfortable for a long time. So if we have to take a little slower in the beginning, and sometimes that can look like using a puppy pen or really gating off an area so the dog isn't, if we're talking puppies, so they're not having free range of the house and messing upstairs and a special place in the basement where they always poop or whatever.
Right?
And you can put the crate in there, door open, take door off.
Yes.
I still feed my 5-year-old Nestle every meal in the crate, unless we're doing some sort of puzzle. And I don't usually even close the door. And sometimes I just take the kibble and I sprinkle it. There's no bowl involved.
Enough.
And now he's foraging and doing his little sniffing to find every piece. Or I just walk by the crate 5 years later. Yummy little piece of chicken.
He's like, the magical crate produced chicken. Amazing.
And it doesn't have to be every time, but it's just like a slot machine where he's walking by and this might be the jackpot. Or didn't score that time.
Yeah. My little girl, Mabel, just had to go to the vet not this last week for she got a foxtail embedded in.
Oh,
And for those of you that are not in this area, foxtails are just like nasty little plants that are the actual barbs, like fish hook type barbs. They can continue to embed and they get further and further in. Anyway, I've always been so careful with foxtails, and she got one, and I saw it, and I'm like, I'm not messing around. I'm not gonna try and pull it out, and I'm just gonna bring her to the vet. And it was like, and it was fine. It was no big deal, but she did have to stay in her little crate for a bit. And she is so used to a crate. She was just When I went to go get her, she was just hanging out.
I'm going to go back just to the house training piece one more time because I know it is a reason that people really do turn to using a crate. If your pup came from a rescue where they were in a, oh, what's the word? Where they just stack dogs on top of dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I do. Well, it's where they stack dogs on top of dogs.
Yes, they've been taught to mess where they sleep. So you have that piece, and you've got a puppy from a great breeder. Their nature is not to mess where they sleep. So knowing which your dog comes from, you want all dogs to be able to stand up and turn around comfortably in their crate. Sometimes pups can grow bigger than expected, and I'll see they're not able to put their head up all the way. They have to crouch. That's not good for their development. Do you have any
Wow.
guidance that you give there with how to maximize the house training potential?
You know what? I'm going to actually defer to you on that because I will
Oh,
tell you the majority of people that contact me, while I'm happy to help them with their house training, et cetera,
yeah.
and where those barriers are going to sit for the house training purposes, et cetera, and how often to move it and enlarge it and so forth. We are triaging the whole I can't stay
You're right.
alone stuff. And so
Yes.
that is not really my expertise. And I think you probably are better served answering that yourself.
All right, I'll dive in then. If you're bringing a new pup home, the Midwest crates are pretty
Ah,
economical, especially if you're starting with a small pup that's going to get a lot bigger. They come with a barrier that's adjustable. So it's the same material as the outside of the crate. It's really secure. And you probably want a smaller space than you think for your pup when you're bringing them home. You really just want enough room for them to be able to stand up and turn around. But if they have the full space, pups aren't instinctually wanting to go where they're sleeping. But if they can go to the back of the crate, then we're like dealing with a pen. We're not maximizing the potential of this little space. So I like to use a towel because it's so easily washable if we have a little bit of an accident. And then most importantly, I like to follow their capacity schedule. So no matter what the space limit is, if they have to go and you're not letting them out, they are going to go. So if a puppy can only hold it X amount of time overnight, you set your alarm and you give them that break so that they keep that little dry space and that we're conditioning that that's not where we go, but on the grass is where we do. And so you can keep that. And then as they're growing, you're just going to extend the barrier bigger and
yeah.
bigger until they're used to it. I don't give the full meal and then nap time back to back because then you're just setting them up to have a number two where they were resting. So that's part of my outline in my schedule in my new book, just lining
Definitely.
that up so that we set them up for success. There's a lot of rescues
Yeah.
that are saving dogs from puppy mills that weren't able to
Females.
sell their dogs, or if you happened to have gone to a puppy store or something, they mess in those little
You
spaces.
do.
And so that instinct has been trained out. And so then we really are setting alarms and we really
Very
have
much so.
to get ahead of when they have to go to train that space is really clean and use enzyme cleaners so it doesn't have any residue of smell or anything in there. But you can really, by following a schedule and routine and using that space that you've already made it comfortable and happy, you can accelerate your house training so much faster.
Oh. And I'm also shocked on the flip side how long it can take if you're not fastidious about it.
Yes. And if adolescent pups can often reverse to having accidents, and that's why we've got this space all set up and comfy,
Yeah.
and we can go back to our schedule and make
Love
sure that we kind of end that habit, be it marking or they had to go to the bathroom as we start getting older pups. So this is a tool that really you want to have in your back pocket for a long time.
Love it.
Thank
Love
you.
it.
Well,
I'm glad you answered it. Basically, I would have wanted to say everything that you just said, but I
it's
wouldn't
okay.
have thought of it. So thank you.
Thank you. So, do you have any final tips do you feel like we didn't cover? I know I asked you tons of questions that you think our listeners should know about crate comfort or training.
The bottom line, last sort of wrap up thought is
Mhm.
truly that it's up to your dog to define what is comfortable for them. That is in a crate or many other aspects of their lives. And we as human beings are on a time schedule, right?
Yes.
Dogs are not that we're on digital time and dogs are not even on analog. They're on like nature time. And now I'm like digital. That's like we're on 5G now and beyond, right?
True.
I used to call it the microwaves, that we're a microwave society. Like, no, we're so beyond the speed of a microwave at this point. The dogs are they're literally working on biological speed,
Yes,
right?
ma'am.
And nature is dictating whether that be house training, whether
Right.
that be they're learning about a long time, whatever that may be. And I think that not only do we need to look at the individual dog in front of us and
Mhm.
adjust what we are doing to their needs, I also think that we should take a moment to be very grateful to dogs for reminding us that we don't have to be on 5G all the time and
Yes.
that we can actually metaphorically or figuratively, literatively stop and smell the roses.
I totally agree, and that is a gift that they give us. Oh,
Mm.
thank you. I really appreciate that. And I highly recommend if your pup has struggled with separation anxiety, Malena is your go-to. She has this amazing self-study program that you could do at your own pace, but also has the resources and the team behind it that are there at your disposal called Mission Possible because it can feel pretty impossible treating separation anxiety on your own, but it is possible. And she generously has shared a discount for our listeners. So I'll have that in the show notes. I love her book, Separation Anxiety in Dogs. And feel free, I'll have in the show notes our earlier conversations, our earlier episodes where we talk more about separation anxiety. But this has been such a pleasure.
So good. And I just want to make a really last moment plug that I would assume that all of your listeners have already grabbed a copy of your book. If they have not, I got a sneak peek, and this is something that everyone needs on their bookshelf or in their ebook reader because it's not always intuitive. We really need to have those schedules when we think we don't. We need to have those instructions when we think we're just like, I've had dogs all my life. I know what to do. You need still those schedules and that instruction because
Mm.
each dog is so importantly in need of that gradual and systematic process that you provide in that book. So thank you for doing that book and everybody listening, go get it.
Yes, us trainers don't always need to troubleshoot the fallout of when we don't have a rhythm with our pups. We can get ahead of it. Yes. Thank you so much. Milena,